What is up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Calyx and Crew Podcast sessions. We've got none other than the man himself, Paul of Scallywag Seed Company. Let me redo that. Scallywag Seed Company is going to be with us today, collector of old school genetics, huge librarian of genetics, both breeding and growing for decades now. Let's give a big hand to Paul. How you doing today, Paul?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Good. Honored to be here, and thanks for having me.
So let's get a little bit of insight from you. I know we got a lot of people from the U.S. in here today that aren't familiar with Scallywag. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into cannabis? What was your first experience like?
So I'm just turned 44 this year. So my first experience with cannabis was I was probably 13 or 14, and I grew up in a small town outside Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So we're in the prairies, kind of central Canada. And I grew up in a small town that was fairly religious and fairly conservative. And with every kind of religious conservative town, there's always a town baddie or a town kind of punk that every parent always warns you not to hang out with. And somehow I just gravitated towards this guy. Yeah, I think a few of us are those guys, but I think I gravitated towards him in our school that we were at, our high school. We took a wood shop together, and just your classic like guy who wasn't really academic, and he was making bongs in wood class while we were making like keychain holders and stuff like that. But yeah, we ended up connecting oddly through that class, and then I kind of would hang out with him. There's not a lot to do in these towns, so you kind of gravitate to just finding things to do. And I ended up linking up with him one night, and I always had this kind of infatuation with cannabis, the leaf, the like the memorabilia from the 60s, the covers of magazines with the pot leaf. I was just infatuated with the pot leaf. I was kind of into the music that promoted cannabis use. And so I just naturally really wanted to get into cannabis at that young age. And I kind of gravitated towards him, and because he was making bongs and stuff in class. And one night we were all out together, me and another friend, and he drove this really old car, like the old Batmobile. And I remember he just picked me up one time, and we were just kind of hanging out, and he was like, "Hey, you want to smoke a joint?" I was like, "Do I ever?" And so we ended up smoking this joint.
Perfect.
And at the time, it was like the first experience. It wasn't really amazing, but I just remember going home that night and eating like a lot of food. And but I knew it was something that I wanted to try again. And then eventually, finally found my high and was like, "Yeah, this is pretty cool, man."
And what was that?
So, but yeah, he was a
What
cool
was the
guy.
high that you liked?
Well, just like the first few times you actually experience like the actual effect, because I know like my first time, you always heard as you got into cannabis that a lot of people in their first experience didn't really experience a high. It was more just of like a little bit of a fuzziness, and then I'm really hungry or I'm tired, let's go to bed. And so I was the guy that got no real effect, but then got really hungry after. But I remember achieving the very first time that really first effective cannabis with a group of friends when we had gone and got some more, and we all rolled up our own joint. We were like, oh man, we got our own joint each. I remember we smoked, probably had enough actually to consume on my own. And I remember just being like, this is awesome, man. And so yeah, that first experience was, in hindsight too, now I know that there was a lot of like Mexi brick that was coming through this kind of group of people, like just it was, like where we were,
You were still in
we
Canada
were
at this
still
time, right?
yeah, we were still being flooded with like brick weed that was coming from Mexico. There was a lot of like South American connections that would come through Paraguay, and a lot of these guys were bringing some of this Mexi, like the South American brick through, right? And a lot of it also came from Mexico. There was some connections to that Mexico kind of a brick that we were getting as well from the States or from Mexi itself. And so this guy actually took these seeds and grew them under fluorescence at his mother's house, and that's the first time I actually saw pot that night too, that we first experienced it. And it was like classic sativa to the ceiling. And later on found out that yeah, he was just breaking up Mexi brick and growing whatever he could find there, and it was like obviously really sativa dominant. But yeah, I still remember the flavors, like spicy. I remember like it had that look to it. I remember, and it was just like, yeah, it was just intriguing, and it was something that you knew you wanted to be a part of. And that's kind of where it all started. And I always say my dad really got me started. He was very anti-cannabis, but he had no idea that subliminally he was in like, probably, I was born in 79, probably in like the earliest years of getting VCRs. He got a VCR, and the first movies this guy rented were Cheech and Chong, like Up in Smoke and that sort of stuff. And so,
That's awesome.
I always say he really influenced me into cannabis. And so, and he was very anti-cannabis, which was funny. So, but he was a big comedian guy. So,
Wow. Yeah, thanks, Dad.
yeah, that
Thanks
was
for the shows.
first time. Yeah, exactly.
Would you say those first couple experiences, I didn't get high my first time either. It wasn't until my second time that I really felt anything. Was that on the Mexican brickweed?
No, this was like I said, we would always go to the city, which was Winnipeg. So we were always like in a small town about 30, no, 20 minutes from Winnipeg. So we would often find someone who was 16 or have someone in our group who was driving, and we'd all pile our money together and like go. There was a couple places that were very famous in Winnipeg where you could always find cannabis. It didn't matter what decade it was, what year, what time of day, what holiday. It didn't matter. You could find weed there. And it was always a couple places. One was the Merchant Hotel, which, if anyone's from this area, they'll just know it was classic. We had a lot of gang activity back in the day. And this place was a place where a lot of the guys would sell their wares, and they would just run up to your car, throw crumpled up tinfoil into your lap, and you would just give them $15 and you would be on your way. But
Tinfoil.
if you fucked around, you found out these guys would carry porcelain, broken up porcelain in their pockets, and they would shatter windows if you drove off without payment. So it was a
Uh,
pretty rough and quick exchange. And then a really classic place was the Circle, and the Circle was in Osborne Village, which is a pretty famous place, and that was another place where we would always get weed. But yeah, we would pool our money together, go to these locations, and buy like really good street weed for the time. And I remember it would just, the first few times we actually got the effect, it was so awesome and intense that like we all knew, me particularly, like this is something that I'm going to have to definitely really, really experience for a long, long time because I enjoyed it so much. So we don't really know what we were smoking at the time, but Winnipeg was always a pretty decent place to get good quality cannabis. Like we had a bunch of avenues where you could get it. You could either get it through a lot of the street gangs, like there was a lot of youth gangs in our city. And then we also had like a lot of the biker connections here as well. We had some clubs that were obviously operating here as
I
well.
was gonna
And then we had a
ask
lot of
with some of the
connections.
selections you gave us, some of the crosses
Yeah,
in here. I had to ask about the Topanga, and then they told me, like, the US name of what we'd call it. I was like, "Ah, damn."
yeah. Like the Topanga to me is like I said, like Canada has so many good cuts and so much good cannabis history, and like obviously, we're neighbors, and so like you know, a lot of us look to you guys though, and do when it comes to like historical cuts and stuff. And so like a lot of the, I'm very blessed to have friends and have a lot of people that I've been able to work with and call friends that we've been able to trade cuts for over the years. And so a lot of my favorite things that I get to consume or hold or grow or work with is always US stuff. Like, I mean, I know that we have some really cool stuff here, and I don't know if it's because I'm just here and I've been able to experience it a lot, but like I
I
find
think
through
that
some of the guys that
every
we trade
grower
with from,
deals with that, "What can I
yeah,
not get?" That's what I want.
well, right, and then like some of the US guys, they tell me too, like some of the Canadian cuts that we send up that way, like they enjoy.
I wanted everybody
But
in the
yes,
chat to know really quick, members are the only ones Patreon members are the only ones allowed to, interact with the Q&A. If you're interested
okay,
in that, go check out Patreon, and you can ask any question that you want to, have it live. Those questions get answered and displayed at the very end of the show, so we'll do some quick fire questions with our guests, and you can find that Patreon link at patreon.com/doc_Calyx. So, what was the first cultivar that you came across that really had a name?
um, I mean, probably. I mean, I started selling pot when I was in my late teens, and I had a really good connection
Legend.
that worked out of the West Coast, and so we were able to get a lot of of the stuff that had names early on. But my first growing experience, like my very first cultivar that I really like, I'm a blueberry fanatic, like a fanatic of blueberry, and have been since the day I first smoked it, heard about it, saw pictures of it. And
So the
so my very
names
first,
came with growing cannabis.
oh, it was just to see something like that was just so unique. And so and then I would get this West Coast blueberry from my guy, and it was like I said, I'd come across like good street stuff before, but like to actually have something that had a blueberry smell that was called blueberry, it just kind of blew my mind. And so the first thing I grew was a blueberry cut, and it was a commercial cut that we grew in a commercial setup where we were running a house, and it was awesome. And then My very first clones, though, that I was able to like secure from someone who did selections or was able to get something from a breeder was one of my favorite things was some of the early, like the very early DNA stuff. They had a couple things like sour cream and stuff like that. There was a couple clones that a guy locally had hunted. He had a lot of expendable cash, and he was able to buy seeds at the time that were so expensive at the time. And he did a lot of hunting, and he had this couple cuts that were really, really special to us. And then some really old Canadian cuts like Rennie. Rennie's a really special cut up here that a lot of people love, and it was a local cut here we had. And then we had some old cuts called Champagne, like a hash plant Champagne cut that was also really good, and stuff like that. But yeah, it started as a commercial stuff, so we were really trying to get commercial flowers at the time, and so it was really a hunt for that sort of avenue of what we wanted to grow. And then the connoisseur part came a few years later.
What was the Renee? Does that have any relation to the Irene?
No, so Rennie is a Canadian cut, a prominent breeder that maybe more people would have heard of than me is uh, Great Gardener, Matt Barron's Great Gardener. He kind of the clone was around for a long time before he made it kind of his flagship or one of his flagships, but uh, the Great Gardener, yeah, from Canada. So he's known for Barber Bud, Orange Barb, Rene in a seed form. They did, I think they did feminized the S1 that I think and made S1 seeds of it. I can't remember what they did with the Rene, but he made it more famous and more prominent. But it's a really unique cut. It's not the most potent cut, but it's just got this absolutely pungent nose and flavor that's kind of like cool water aftershave. It's got a really unique nose to it and a skunky, like it's really awesome. And it's like I said, not the most potent stuff, but it's just a staple here. It's got such a robust nose and flavor that it was always really easy to move. Like you could always smell it through the bag, and it had a great look to it. It's popcorn bud, and it
Really
had a
is.
like a good high, but nothing that would put you in the couch. And so, but that was one that a lot of people ended up passing up as the new trends started coming in, and those are the things that I love scooping up or hunting and getting hold of after they've been kind of forgotten about, because I always find there's either a revival in a lot of ways, either just from nostalgia or just people seeking out tools that are a little bit less hybridized. And so this cut though is a bit of a pain in the ass, like a lot of these old cuts to grow. It's finicky and old and takes a lot of care. But I actually just ran a plant. It's actually just in the corner of it, and it just finished. Like it likes throwing single nanners too, so it's sometimes can be an ugly plant, but it's just the smell and flavor. It's so nostalgic for us, and I just love it so much. And it outcrosses pretty fairly well too. We've outcrossed it to a few things, and even though it has that tendency to throw single nanners, it seems to sometimes outcross really well depending who it pairs with. Adds unique flavor and noses to it that you just don't really. There's nothing in it in cannabis that smells like it, in my opinion, and in a lot of other people's opinion that get to experience it. But it's one of those things that not a lot of people know of. So
Those are the ones that you don't gotta keep around. They're so good, they'll get shared and it'll stay around.
yeah, and there's a reason why people like want to seek it out again like 10, 15 years after they had smoked it. Or
Exactly.
it's the best thing when you break it out at a party here, because it is a local strain that people know. And so when you sometimes break it out at like a Christmas party or like a birthday or an anniversary, people are like, fuck man, like what is that? And they're like, I've smoked that before. And you're like, yeah, it's Rennie. And they're like, yeah, I had a guy who had a girlfriend and her guy used to always bring this stuff over. That's it, man, we love that, we smoked it for years. And that's kind of Rennie to us. There's a lot of those strains, but that's Rennie to us.
That
But
sounds
my
like a
favorite
personal
strain,
experience.
yeah, my favorite strain growing early on would have had to have been our early blueberry cut that we were getting, and we don't know where it came from. I know it was from the West Coast, but it was tremendous. It was a really really awesome cut.
Okay. That's interesting. I haven't messed around with the blueberries too much. I have done, a sativa leaning blueberry and
Nice,
a broadleaf blueberry. The one that I got from Canada, it was definitely a thin leaf. It had longer inner nodes and it had very purple buds. I was actually pretty impressed by that one.
nice.
But
Yeah, we have a
it
few that
wasn't
are.
the strongest stuff, but it was tasty.
Yeah, we have a few. Like we have a pretty like deep history of blueberry here. There is a lot of blueberry that, and we like you said, we have two distinct kind of types, and it's obviously a thin like a narrow leaf and then a broadleaf, and both are great. And I was keeping a couple that have narrow and broad, and we had to narrow it down a little bit, like we were talking about the catalog being narrowed down. And I stuck with a few of my favorites, but there's a couple Fraser Valley blueberries. Like there's a broadleaf, the original broadleaf Fraser Valley blueberry. It's a harder plant to get now. It's almost extinct, I think. It is phenomenal. And then there's a very kind of narrow leaf sativa leaning, beautiful blueberry type sativa hash plant that I held for a long time. I was able to preserve and keep, but it just had a absolutely, like, for me, I like a really potent stuff, like potent high. It just had no high to me. Really beautiful in every other aspect. Great for breeding, great for just experiencing a very light, no burnout, but just didn't have any potency for me. And it's funny, you get rid of things and then suddenly people are like, that's what people want. And so like
Yeah.
I've had to sadly be like, oh, I don't have that anymore. Like I can get it, but I don't have it. It's kind of a pain to find. But yeah, so we have lots. And then I have my favorite blueberry, which is my Winnie the Blue, which is my flagship blueberry cut, which I love so tremendously much. And that has a little tribute to Winnipeg, where I'm from, because Winnie the Pooh was kind of born and bred in Winnipeg, Manitoba, like the famous character, and so
Right.
it was named after Winnie the Blue, so, or Winnie the Pooh. So,
That's
and it's,
awesome.
I love it.
And what
Yeah.
was the cross on the Winnie the Blue?
So Winnie the Blue comes from a lot of my work and some of my early stock and earlier things that I was able to be so lucky to get comes from, we had this group on the Skunk magazine forum. This was probably about 10 or 12 years ago. There was this really special time, Skunk forum. Skunk magazine had this forum where there was people like myself, and I mean, I was just a noob, but there was people like the Rev were there, Snow High, just some tremendous people. And there was this elder, a lot of elders too, that were not known, but were really, really influential in their own right. This old timer elder called Time Tunnel. And Time Tunnel is just a really, really special guy. And he had some really amazing, just amazing work and stuff that he had done over his history of loving this plant. And he was able to, it was a really nice seed exchange place. And so we exchanged seeds, and he gave me some original work called Time Tunnel Zadie's Blueberry. And at the time I was just, chasing everything blueberry. And I ended up running those seeds, and we found this amazing plant called, that I called Winnie the Blue. And actually right now we're just preserving the line again, doing some F3 work on it right now. And that's what I was sexing, like I was telling you 13 minutes before the show started, still doing sexing work here before the show started. So we're doing some F3s now, OP F3s, just to preserve the line, minimizing some things out of it, but going to do a pretty good OP. I'm hoping to do maybe 15 females we're down to, and probably about 8 or 9 males. We're just kind of eliminating some things right now that I'm not really a fan of. I'm trying to get rid of all the earlier flowering stuff in the blueberry males and try to keep the ones that are holding on to their pollen, which is a first. I usually like putting both in the line, but this time around we're going to try to eliminate some of those ones that drop pollen a little bit soon.
So we're gonna give a few packs of your seeds away at the end of the show as well. 2 packs are gonna go to our members. 1 pack is going to come to anybody that came to watch this show. We're gonna roll a little roulette wheel, and you guys will get some seeds. I was looking at these ones that you donated for us, which, by the way, again, thank you so much. Beyond generous, man. Um,
Honor, man.
but how does the Winnie the Blue differ from the Dennis the Menace?
So Winnie the Blue is a female 80s blueberry from Time Tunnel. So like I said, that's my flagship blueberry strain. That's the one that I found, and you can go see the actual documentation of it, which is really cool on IC Mag. There's a IC Mag thread called Pollen Bombing Episode 1, because I'm also a huge Star Wars geek, and it's a really cool thing just to go back and see some of the old work that you do, and it was all preserved there. So you can kind of go back and see some of you can actually see the run where Winnie was found. But Winnie the Blue is the female 80s Time Tunnel blueberry. And then, like I had mentioned, I was a blueberry fanatic early on. And so once those commercial crops started, I had always been looking at magazines, buying seeds, and I started really buying anything I could buy for DJ Short blueberry or any type of blueberry cross. And so we ended up buying some earlier seeds from DJ. And Dennis the Menace was a variety or a phenotype I found in some old DJ blueberry seeds. So not like old, not like everyone's like pre 98. Like, no, this is like early 2000s, probably like 2005, 2006. So the line was still pretty decent at the time. We were still getting some like really nice blueberry phenos long before the loam and the sandy loam and the musky and the like port wine and all that sort of like flavor took over the line. There's still a lot of blueberry. So we found this really nice blueberry male. and I named this blueberry cut that I used for years in my earlier blueberry work, Dennis the Menace. And my father-in-law Dennis was a real awesome guy, but he was also a menace, and so we named it after him, Dennis the Menace, and he passed away. So rest in peace. So, but
It
yeah,
even
it's a
pays
so that's the
homage
difference.
to him. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the difference. So one's female, different line altogether, and there was some projects done with both, but Winnie the Blue over the years stayed as the library got narrowed down because it's my flagship. There's no blueberry plant I've experienced to this day that I truly love and cherish more. It's so special to me.
I really wanna dig in and hear so much about that library. I've heard you have an extensive one, and I'm sure there's a ton of things that's gonna tickle not only my goat, but a lot of people that are in here as well, because we got some older growers.
For
Um,
sure.
Before we get into that though, what was the change between you growing cannabis to breeding cannabis? Was there a time gap or it kinda coincide with each other?
I think just like progression. Like for me, like I don't know, I always like to when I get into something, I get really into something. It's like that in every aspect. It was like that with like drugs. It was like that with everything, music. So I really just and then for years, like you said, we just look at the magazines and we're on the forums and we're just it's I don't know, it's just seeing work and seeing other people's drive and dedication to their work that yeah, I just saw these catalogs and then started buying seeds and then started doing, I started taking some university courses for my professional job that I ended up with early on, and a lot of it was science based, and so it was just kind of went hand in hand, and so started doing a little bit of like smaller hobby stuff just to kind of make seed and see what I could do and what we could find, and then realize that like there's nothing more exciting now in my life than like making selections and then putting them together and then doing either like some small inline breeding or just running pheno hunts. Like pheno hunts to me to this day, doing it now for quite some time, like there's nothing more exciting in the world than a pheno hunt, like especially when it's your own work. Like I always say, be your favorite breeder, like, or be your favorite seed maker. And if you truly have a calendar that's just filled with your own seed starts, to me that's like you've reached already the pinnacle that you know every breeder or seed maker should reach. It's not about getting your seeds out there. To me, it's not about making money. To me, it's about loving the work that you're doing enough that it is always on the calendar of the seed starts. Like, sure, you start other people's work, but the real excitement is right in your own garden, right in your own notebooks, and just seeing your work in front of you. To me, it's what keeps me going in the darkest days when you're stuck at your 9 to 5 and you're just like, and you're going broke from all the shipping you're covering, and you're just like you're struggling a little bit, but you're like, dude, I have a pheno hunt going on in my room and it's just amazing right now. And that's, to me, that's
This
the
guy's
pinnacle.
doing this one's doing this one's got
Yeah,
this
like
cool thing.
the just like
I'm with you.
week six pheno hunt on a shorter like a BLD, like, or a hybrid, like week 6 7, like to me that is just, there's no happier time in the world of making seeds and running your work and looking at your lines and making plans and goals from that pheno hunt. Like that is this most special time, and I have one going on right now. It's just it's just electric. It's just, to me, why you should be doing it. And obviously getting it out and having other people experience it is just, it's an honor, and it's just icing on the cake. But it's just like, really, at the end of the day, this should all be about your own enjoyment of what you're doing. Or like, why do it? Like, don't do it because you want to make money or you want a following or you're trying to impress this guy or
Do it for the
impress this
love of
group
it.
or crew. Like, it doesn't matter. Have fun, man, and just like do what you want, man. And that's what it should be about. So, and that's what it's been about. Been blessed for that. But that was the progression, was just seeing better and better things as things went on. Like, oh my God, I was kind of hoping this would be what I would see in this little bit of work and little bit of adjusting I did to this one line. And I'm seeing that now, not maybe in what I would like to see in the greater scheme, but I'm just seeing little things that I was hoping to see is now present in this further work. And so it's just progression. And then as you get more in tune with people in the community and better relationships form, then it's just, like I said, I've been so blessed to not have to pay for seeds for so long, and I had a raid where I lost my seeds, and so I had to rebuild, and it was just literally because of these relationships you form with other fanatic people who just love the plant, love the community, love sharing, want progression in friends and other breeders and other seed makers, aren't trying to hinder anyone's progress. It's just an open sharing type community. So I've been able to rebuild, and with the better genetics that come in, you see better things, better line work, and it's just a progression all the time. And so it was really about just seeing that sort of work and just wanting to do more and more and more. And then also getting a better catalog, better access to genetics. And then really at the end of the day, also kind of saving some money, because there was a point there where, and I'll never take a hit at anybody charging $1,000 for their seeds. If that's what you want to do, man, that's what you do. But like there was some seeds that people I knew were paying like $1,000 for, and even up. So yeah, it was a little bit of everything to really progress and to start doing the breeding work and seed making work.
I hear that joint being rolled right now. I've got
Yeah, I've
excellent
been trying to get
audio
out for
over here.
15, 20 minutes.
We are almost at the halfway mark, and that's usually where I like to smoke. So if you're down, you light up that joint. I don't have a joint ready, and I don't
Yeah,
want
I'm
to have to
smoking some
roll one
Seri
with all
Paul.
this equipment around, but I will definitely dab with you.
We're
I
doing
am
Seri
more of a
Chem, which,
flower guy. It's just way
yeah,
easier to dab on
joints,
run.
dude. I'm a joint guy. I smoke joints all the time. Fucking all day. And they're always like, we were sitting with some friends and we were laughing. They're like, how big are your fucking joints, man? Oh, nice, man. Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful, dude. Beauty. What is it?
It's called Tropic Thunder.
Oh, okay, cool, man. Cool.
I have
Is it
no idea what it
tropical?
is.
Yeah, I'm doing some Seri Chem, which is the Seri Paul, which is the Afghan Pakistani times the Chem Dog 91 Fem. And this has been just my obsession for the last like year and a half. But this last run has been just a pheno hunt, and I'm just obsessed.
Want to
Obsessed.
trade?
Oh, dude, I would love to have you send this. Like, I love working with the Chem family because it brings that really heavy potency and some of those traits like the that you see in like the sours and the rubbers and the like the skunky notes and this the just that funk, and I just love the potency. And so I find this stuff is just it's right up my alley, man.
Yeah, that's my type of stuff too. I've never worked with any of it. I've worked with skunks, but I've never worked with the Chems. I heard they were really picky. I did not want to start
They're a
with that.
pain. They're a real pain. But like the 91, like the 91 to me is and just like I said, I have no place in this plant. It's just been something that's found its way towards me, and I've been blessed enough to hold. And I'll always say that all the shout outs and the accolades to these guys that held this plant since 91. Everyone that had their hand in it, there's some really famous people and some really well known guys that have really put their life on the line to keep this Chem Dog 91 safe. And all shout outs and accolades to those guys. Like I said, just a small spoke in the wheel that just cherishes this plant and loves this 91. But I know that really at the end of the day, I just was lucky enough to experience it. So shout out to those guys. And we all know who they are. I don't have to say their names. I won't name drop. Those guys are just, amazing community members and breeders. And, they hold that place rightly so.
My God, that was delicious. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, man. Like I said, I like the acrid stuff, but there's still those sweet trop, and like there's so much of it now that you can find some really amazing flavors in this in all this new stuff that's kind of out right now and been around for a while.
I'm 100% with you because just like I told you, I'm really into skunks. I'm really into chems. I even like a good OG.
Yeah,
If I had the choice, I would only choose fruity about 25% of the time, probably.
yeah, and I'm
But
with you.
one of my favorite breeders up to this point has been Dynasty Genetics, which does like a lot of fruit, you know?
Yeah,
So if I am going to go that way, I'm going to go that way. But my thing, more than anything, um, is pheno hunting land races. So that's
mhm.
why I'm not as scared anymore to work with the chems as I was before. I did want to get some thoughts directly from you. Have you ever had a failed breeding project where you just scrapped it?
There's so many that you just scrap. That's the problem with it. And then what do you do with those seeds, right? You just have this like fucking fridge full of shit, and like
Right.
one of the most legendary dudes, Archive. I mean, he's got some funny stories where he's just like he's got fridges of stuff, and I mean, Archive is amazing. He's got I mean, I would find it hard to believe that he's got anything sitting around that's not amazing. But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there's, it's hard. I just kill them. Like, I just get rid of them. Or, sometimes people are just like, they want to grow a large population of something, and they just want to do it, and they don't want to pay for seeds. And so you just explain to them, like, dude, I can give you a bunch of seeds, but they didn't turn out the way I like them, and they have this kind of negative thing, that's why I didn't want it. And but of course I have a lot of stuff that has just been scrapped, and that's part of it,
So what would you
unfortunately.
say to somebody that's newer to breeding, that had a failed project or whatever, and that was really disheartening to them? Coming from your standpoint, it seems like to this day, you going through pheno hunts is a huge lot in life that brings you joy. How do you continue on with that attitude after failed projects?
Well, you just have to get into this knowing that you're getting into something like breeding. You're working with things that you don't really get to see until all this work is invested in it, right? It's kind of like any art form. So you really have to have a passion for it, and have to understand getting into this that, dude, it's like I said, you can go broke doing this. Like, even though you might have a following, or people have a following. I mean, you have to understand there is huge things that you give up to do this. Like, it's not a fun job, like just running a commercial garden, or a connoisseur garden, if you want to use that term, where you're growing, you know,
Yeah, this is your life.
100 plants, and you're growing 25. You're growing four different cultivars, or whatever it is. You're growing this amazing, always exciting, beautiful flowers, and you're processing these beautiful flowers, whether you're making hash or flour, whatever you're doing. And then
Perpetually, usually.
yeah, and seeds is like, can be really fucking boring, man. And like, you can lose money doing it, and so it's part of the game, man. And so it's just like, anyone that chooses whatever pathway in this community, I mean, you have to really sit back, and in life, and just be like, these are the pros, these are the cons, this is what can happen negatively, this is the positive. And you just have to figure if it's something that you're going to do. But make sure you understand, getting into this, you are going to have projects that just stink, and you're going to be like, fuck, I just wasted 8 months pollinating, keeping mothers around, taking clones of phenotypes that I thought might be awesome, and they all just fucking stink. And you learn from it. But hopefully it doesn't happen as often as it can happen. And hopefully you're lucky enough to like bring some sort of, pre-intelligence to the game, where you did some reading and some research and maybe some theory-based stuff, and then you're applying it to your practice. And it's just like anything, that just the more you apply, the more theory makes sense, the more theory you can add, and the more application you can get into your thing, and get better and better and better. And like, progression is always the plan. And so even if you're not saying, don't quit. Like I said, as long as you're having fun, do it. You can keep making shitty projects, but as long as you're having fun. I mean, and try not to share the shitty projects.
That was
Is a big
directly
one.
for me, thank you. I got really lucky with my first few breeding projects. They came out exactly like I wanted to, and I was on an F3, and the progeny in that group just sucked. It was just too male dominant in the whole
Yeah,
fucking thing, and it disheartened me so much, I just didn't even continue on with that line. And I got people
yeah,
asking me to this day, "Can I get some of those seeds?" I'm like, no."
yeah.
I scrapped that shit.
I mean, to me, scrapping a project because it's something that you don't want versus something that's problematic is different. Like, you can, there's definitely, I have so many projects in the fridge that, like, there's no problems with it, but they're just not like, I wanted acrid and it turned out fruity, or I wanted short plants and they turned out tall, like stuff like that. That I'm still holding on to, and I'm happy to give away in large amounts to people that need seeds. But again, I always explain, like, hey, they're not what I wanted. That's why I'm giving them to you for, your for whatever you want to do with them. So, but no, I definitely hear you, man. So
That's a good perspective to have on it. It wasn't really problematic, I just made the wrong selection, I need to go back and rework it. At that point, I had no idea, or didn't even think to use multiple males and isolate the pollen on different branches or anything like that. I
yeah,
just one run, shoot, you know?
exactly. But like I said, you learn, right? And then you
Yeah.
reformulate and you replan, and then you do something again, or you do it over again, right, with better success. And one of the big things, adjustments, was doing S1 work. And so you do regular breeding with regular males for, a long time, and then you suddenly are tasked with learning something new, and hopefully you have some sense, and it's easy to kind of take on the theory, which it was, and then you got to apply it. And so one thing with selfing is it doesn't matter who's doing the selfing, what breeder it is, they could be the best, and you just sometimes run into issues, and it's just it's part of that kind of realm of making seeds with selfing projects, and everyone struggles with it. I've heard the best of the best talk about it, and I just had a problem here. I was trying to do a whole room with a certain female that was or a certain reverse plant, and it just did not draw pollen, and I had a time frame I was really trying to stick to. And so thank God you have some backup stuff that you've collected that you can use in case you need a backup. And so, yeah, we changed from a chem dog room. We went to a blueberry room. And so everything got hit with blueberry instead. So, and that's just the way it is. So, yeah, part of it. Gotta
Damn.
have a backup plan.
I'm learning on this episode. I hope everybody over there in chat is. Holy shit. So let's dig in a little bit more to this library that you've collected over all these years. Actually, let's go back really quick because I can't say that there's no way I can go over it and say I missed it. So can we talk about the raid or not?
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, so for sure. So
Okay.
we really
What was that about?
Canada legalized in 2016. I think it was October of 2016. I should know, but I fucking sometimes you don't remember things. But I think it was October 2016. Canada legalized. I had been growing. I had been a nurse for almost a decade, and was growing pot for my own medical consumption. And part of my university as nursing was I really, really gravitated towards nursing law and like justice. And so part of that was learning about harm reduction and things like that. And I come from 2016. Yes, legalization was 2016 too. All right, that I know. So yeah, raid was the same year, 2016. But yeah, so part of the nursing. Sorry, I got interrupted. But yeah, raid was 2016. So I was a nurse at the time, and I just didn't want to get. I felt that it was just. It wasn't right to have to go. So the way it worked is you had to get a doctor to sign for your medical, and the only way you could really get a medical in Canada at the time was you had to have like a really terrible ailment, like you had to have like some sort of wasting disorder from either AIDS or a cancer diagnosis where you were getting something for your symptom management, right? And so I suffer from horrible anxiety, depression, and I have for my entire life. And I just couldn't get signage from a doctor. And the only way I could do it was I had to go to BC to get a signage, and you have to pay $5,000. You see a doctor who doesn't even know you and just signs you a paper, right? And so I was growing illegally, but I was quite okay with it because I knew I wasn't hurting anybody. I was supplying my own medicine, and I was really doing my own thing while I was a nurse and going through my nursing school, but for the part of my nursing career. And so 2016 rolled around. Legalization was literally around the corner in October, and September. My wife and I were leaving the house, and boom, we got arrested. I mean, we got arrested. So we got arrested there, and then a raid followed, obviously. So they raided my house, and they had been following or watching our house for about a week. And it was all based on I have great neighbors. I live in a great community. It's like a really awesome, like middle-class place. Everyone's really friendly. And I used to do everything I could to mask smell. But I mean, I'm growing really fucking stinky plants, and I'm doing everything I can, like going above and beyond charcoal filters, but I'm coming up with my own homemade things to like dryer sheets outside and Ona tanks and just everything you can imagine. But there's still a bit of an odor. And so someone kept complaining about smell, one neighbor, and it's more of like a business. And so it's really not people that live here, but it's just, they seem inconvenienced with the smell at their business. And so kept complaining, and then we started getting watched for about a week, and then the raid hit. And so they'd been watching us for a week, and they thought they had a pretty big operation because of the smell they were smelling. It was quite pungent, they felt. And so when they raided us, they were quite disappointed because, like I said, most of my grow was always mother plants and a library of stuff that wasn't flowering. So my flowering area was quite small. But yeah, they hyperinflated everything in the paper that it was a real big outfit and, all this sort of bad stuff. But in that process, I mean, I lost all my mother plants and my seed collection, which at the time was, I mean, I still get sad. It's like losing something that you'll never get back, right? So yeah, that was the raid, and they like literally they arrested us. I ended up having to. We ended up spending short of $100,000 for our legal fight. Ended up getting house arrest. I was lucky, really lucky to get house arrest because at the time we had mandatory minimums for growing, and I was just a little bit under the mandatory minimum for 5 years, but there was still a mandatory minimum of a year in prison, and I was able to have a good lawyer and really fight and pay and get 6 months house arrest or a year house arrest, but six absolute. And then, yeah, I ended up walking away from nursing as a result of it because there was a fight there for professional misconduct, which is part of being a professional. But yeah, today I ended up, and part of it was also getting some cannabis contracts in the legal world. So it was a good transition, and that's kind of how things played out. But yeah, it didn't really stop me because I ended up getting my ACMPR about 2 months after the raid. I finally broke down and was like, okay, this is serious. So let's get some protection
Yeah,
and and and
definitely
and
after that. I'm sorry that
warranted
happened
protection.
the first time, man.
Yeah, but I mean, like a lot of us dealt with it. I was lucky. I know friends that did 5 years for cannabis. So
Well, in my mind, it's horse shit for a day, really. Like, at the end of the day, we're growing a plant. You shouldn't be able to arrest me for cannabis any more than you can for a tomato.
for sure, man,
Period.
and it really like I had a 16-year-old daughter, like, and we were smart. Like we have a pretty smart family. Like we knew there was always potential, and so like just like a family makes a fire plan, it's just so odd that when you're a cannabis family, like you have to make a raid plan. But thank God we had because my daughter was just a trooper, and my wife, who is the most. I mean, I owe everything. Everyone who does this, who makes this commitment, like if you have a partner in your life that's been with you through some of this stuff, like she's been through my raid, you just all everything is dedicated to them because like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. The shit she did for me when the raid happened, the just seeing all that stuff. My daughter, just how supportive they were, how stoic they were, how brave they were. It's just if you have a partner that stands beside you and you do what we do. I mean, like I said, they're the real all stars. So, but yeah, it was so hard on our family, man. They just tear your house apart. And I remember my biggest fear when I like was getting interviewed is was like I thought they not only did they take all my plants, but I thought they took all my soil. And so I'm a living soil guy, and I had been like that is my like going on my 8th year at the time of making my living soil, and so I was so worried out of all the things that was also gone was my soil. And I remember they were just looking at me like I was fucking insane that I was worried about soil. But yeah, it was a really scary time, man. It's still hard to get over, so it's crazy. It just changes you. You become a little bit more like jaded.
That's the word for it right there too.
Yeah,
Jaded.
but the community came through. I'm telling you, I got my license 2 months later. Fucking had no seeds, no clones left. I tried to salvage like every story you hear. Oh, I went in the back alley. I was able to pull a couple fucking clones off a dead mother that they forgot. They ripped me down, man. So, but within 2 months, I had every clone I had shared and had at the time, which was a pretty extensive library at the time. Not only did I have most of those seeds that, maybe there was some I couldn't get back, but I still had stuff that was given to me that I knew came from other people's special places that they would normally not part with. But it just shows the level of, if you're dialed into this community and you're actually not trying to like fuck it and you got good people and good groups with you, it's amazing. It's amazing place to be a part of. So, but yeah, man, we're all stronger from this shit. So at the end of the day, like I said, life shit happens, and it's just you just got to be happy where you are, and I am.
Let's dig into your library really quick because I've got all your seeds here and I'm looking through some of these, and there's some holy shit names in here. There really is.
Well, like I said, lucky, very lucky to have friends, and like very lucky to be trusted with stuff, man. But like I said, it goes two ways. My favorite thing to do in life is to be able to give something back to somebody that they've lost, and that's the most. I mean, the most honorable thing and the most honored thing you can feel is when someone reaches out to you and they're like, "Dude, I lost my breeder cut of so and so," and you're like, "Hey, man, just give
Gotcha.
me your address. It's out Monday." So that's the coolest thing. But yeah, it's just the circle of blessing, man. Like you got to really put that time and investment and trust in, and then it pays back, man. And it's just that reciprocal, awesome thing that this community produces. It's so unlike any other community.
We don't have to name We don't. If you want to, you think you
Oh,
could do that? You want
we
to
can, of course, we can
do some
talk, man, for sure.
auctioneer voice?
You just talk. I'll answer whatever you got there, whatever you
I
need.
was just gonna ask you, name like your top 5 favorite, but it's up to you.
I
You
mean,
want
I
to run through
could.
the list? Run through the list.
I mean, I could name my top five for sure. So, I mean, like, obviously, my favorite plant of all time is the Chem Down Anyone. It's all time favorite. And like I said, I have no hand in that plant. I'm just
So we don't gotta
lucky,
ask
lucky
the
to.
desert island question. That's it for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, grown well, though, because, like, it can be grown, it can be
Yeah.
butchered. Like, it needs to be really well grown. And that comes with really getting to know her well. And like I said, I just am lucky to be a steward to her. Like, I have no hand in this plant. It just affected me in a way that I was lucky to be able to experience. So that's my number one. I mean, I really am a huge fan of like Canadian Kush plants, or like we have a few that kick around here. So like I'm a huge fan of like, and I mean obviously like these plants originated in the U.S., so we can't take any credit for it. But like Purple Kush, the original Purple Kushes, like there's a few of those original cuts that to me are just
That's pretty
phenomenal.
rare.
Yeah, and there's a Canadian guy, Direwolf, who's just like a true OG too. He's an amazing guy in so many ways. He's got a really special clone only of a Purple Kush that I think is probably the best Purple Kush cut I've ever consumed. It's just phenomenal. And then there's like some other cuts too, like Garberville, and there's there's a few with the SF and just a whole bunch of stuff. But Purple Kush, and then we have a famous cut here, Pink Kush, which is like people will tease you if you like it, like because it's so fucking well known
Yeah.
here, and everybody is just like done with it. Like, oh, no more Pink Kush, but I don't care what anyone says. It's such a special plant. So
So
that I
like the
love the
cookies.
Master. Yeah, Master Kush to me, like there's two really well known phenos of Master. There's like the short one that's really hard to find. There's a tall, lankier Master. I love the tall, lanky Master Kush. And then I'm an OG. Like, I mean, to me, the best plants are OGs too. So there's some OG plants that I really, really cherish. We have a couple Canadian ones here. There's like Roji OG, which is like a purple Cali OG. It's really good. And then like the obviously like the American OGs are the best. But yeah, I guess it's really hard to narrow five down. I don't know if I could do it actually. Yeah, no, I can't. But
Okay, well,
those are
I'm
the
stuck on
tops.
OG now because I wasn't expecting that. So, out of your OGs, what would be top 3 OGs?
I think probably the best OG that I've ever consumed, I was able just to finally get, and that would probably be like the M1 OG or the SBSE.
Okay.
So like the sour best shit ever, also
Mhm.
known as like my number one OG, the M1 OG, which I think is its true name. That to me is really really special. And then I'm finding too like we have this Canadian uh, OG cut, which is Roji OG, and it's only called Roji OG because there's a producer of concentrates in BC called Roji Concentrates, and he got his hand on this cut. So no one seems to really know what it is, but it comes from California, and it's just got this really light purple coloring to it, but it's just got this tremendous gas flavor that I really like. And then there's all your classics like San Fernando, Ghost, but like I don't hold all of those. Um, but those are probably my favorite ones that I hold.
Did I
Yeah, and then
already
I got
ask
a
you
couple.
about the Irene at all?
Yeah, I mean the Irene is. There's a couple guys in Canada that have done a lot of work with it and really really enjoy it. A few friends hold it, but like I said, it's something that's being really enjoyed and used by a couple people that I know that are either doing work with it or they're doing something with it. So I know it's tremendous, it's phenomenal, but it's just not something that I hold or work with it. But I know that it's a legend in its own right, and it's here, it floats around for sure.
I noticed you mentioned Archive earlier. I think one of my favorite OGs was the Rude Boy that he made. There's just something about it's a floral OG, but
Right.
that's what makes it original to me. It's got still got OG properties to it, but I love that flavor.
We have his hazmat OG. I think it's Archives does
Mhm.
a hazmat. So, and that just came from another really special friend of mine who I'm really lucky to know from the U.S. And he's a really influential guy in my library. He's been so generous, sending me some stuff that you know I would never be able to get my hands on if it wasn't for him. So I was just able to get some hazmat OG cuts from him, and they've been in quarantine, and now they're out in the bedroom. They should be getting flowered soon. But like I said, he's a special guy. He always gets really special, hard to find U.S. stuff that I'm just so lucky to get my hands on. So, and we also were able to get just I guess it's the crinkle cut Legend Kush, Legend OG, but Legend Kush crinkle cut. And I think there's another grower on Instagram. I won't name drop, but he grows it quite well in his room. And there's a really good threads of it on IC Mag, and that's another cut that I just like. I can't believe I got my hands on that I'm able to start working with. So and that thing to me is just unbelievable. So
That's the one with the leaves that like do the wave thing.
yeah, it's got a weird crinkle to it, just like a distinctive feature, kind of like
Mm.
some other cuts that we know of that do that. And but yeah, it's mistaken as an OG. I think there's a chem dominant crinkle cut OG Kush, but this is like it's more of a legend Kush. They call it, like the really guys who grow it and know it really well versus OG. So, but it's really special. Like, I mean, really special. I love, and then I'm finding my own, and that's, like I said, that's been the really cool thing is a lot of the stuff that I work with. So I find working with the dog, the 91, a lot of it's pairings or S1 work with it. Like, I love running large numbers of ChemDog 91 S1s because I find in that population, like I have found things that have become my favorite OG types or sour type plants that I just haven't named, but they have like a number or some sort of marking in my garden that like I just love so much. I'm smoking more than like the original mother, like because it's got a little bit more bigger and it brings a little bit more flavor, and it's just like it's got the high, but it's got a little bit something else to it. And now, like I said, the Seri Chem line, which is the Seri Paul, is bringing that really special Afghan Pakistani from the mother I used to the 91. And so you're finding like all the traits that I love in the 91 outcrosses and outlines, but now I'm getting this amazing like structure and some other special notes from the Afghan Paki. So yeah, having this beautiful library is so wicked, but yeah, and so stuff like that is Canada. So Breeder Steve Sweet Skunk. So everyone knows Breeder Steve, and he has this tremendous clone only Sweet Skunk. It's not to be confused with Island Sweet Skunk, which is a seed line, but Breeder Steve's Sweet Skunk clone only is this beautiful haze type cultivar that's very high pining. It's got a beautiful pine. It's got really potent effects, long lasting high, long legs on it, and it's just a tremendous plant. And it's like I said, if you're able to get your hands on it and grow it, it's one of these plants that like it's got that old school everything we love: long legs, great high, great flavor, great nose, great effect. And the Jihadi Kush was I'm lucky enough to work with and have Charles Scott as a mentor of mine and friend, reefer man, and we've been friends for years. I was a tester and did some pictures for some of his ads like years ago, and so we've just been buddies for a long time. And he's traded a lot of stuff and given me a lot of stuff. And he had this line Jihadi Kush that he called Jihadi Kush, and it was also like an AFPAC Nepalese line. So it had some really nice kind of landrace type based origin type P1s to it. And so that line is really cool. It's got this like hazy old school type clone only from Canada mixed with this like Afghan Paki Nepalese line that Reeferman did. And the siblings are really interesting. You get really kind of everything from across the board, but all old school kind of notes and flavors. So tremendous, as Joey Diaz would say, tremendous,
I'm keeping
tremendous
that
stuff.
one back off, guys.
Dude, yeah, like I said, the fridge is like I'm moving in so many new directions with like doing the S1 work and the selfing stuff and the feminized stuff that I have this fridge now of so much regular stuff that's just kind of sitting around. And so lately, when I've been getting some really awesome people that are grabbing larger amounts, I just fucking like, oh yeah, fucking thank you so much, man. I just throw in like just a ridiculous amount of freebies of stuff that's just laying around. So hit me up, man, for sure. Whatever you want extra, I'll hit you up for sure.
I appreciate that more than anything, man. You have no idea. And likewise, if there's anything I can get you, I've got an extensive library. Sadly, most of my stuff is mostly land races, but I got some good other stuff too.
Yeah, but land race is great, and for sure, man, we'll talk. This
If
fucking joint just won't go out.
I'm
Go ahead.
okay with going through chems now is because I've gone through a few different landrace pheno hunts now, and it doesn't take you more than a couple runs to realize most of this is trash. and I'm lucky if I find something that I really, really like out of it. And then at
That's
that
land.
point, I'm really, really lucky if I find something that I like that outcross as well.
Yeah.
So,
And that's land races. Like I was in this, like I mean, we all go through this phase, and sometimes longer than others. And we were in a long phase. I had partners in other crews that we had. Like my partner from Golden from Green Beaver Genetics, we were on this kick for land race. Like we were running everything we get our hands on. And like land race is just what you said. It's like generally it's unworked, and it's just like it's hit or miss. You got to run through so much to find a gem, but when you do find a gem, it's a fucking gem. And a lot of the times, if it's got some of the stuff you're looking for in that line that you were kind of either heard of or had experienced early on, sometimes they work as tremendous breeding tools or outcrossing tools. And the stuff that you use them for, you may not even consume it that often, but you do use it and keep it around because it is such a treasure or such an amazing tool to use in further things that you do. So I have a lot of stuff like that where I love to consume it but don't want to consume it every day,
oh yeah.
but definitely keep it around strictly because I love working with it. I know its value and using it to make things better in other projects. So
Just being a hobby grower for many years, I found out pretty quick that I really love growing work lines of stuff that I love. But some of my favorite plants to grow were some, like you said, Reefer Man earlier, Snow High, some of those guys that were doing the early, just straight hybrid work before everything was polyhybridized,
for
or at
sure.
least fighting the polyhybrids that were there and just going back to good old classic hybrids. And some of those plants were like my favorite plants to grow. And that was something that I was like, I want to create that with different strains around the world that a lot of people aren't using. Something
For sure.
different, something new.
Yeah,
I think cannabis more than anything right now, in the modern market needs more diversity than anything.
for sure. Yeah, I mean we're in a period right now. Like I mean everyone complains about it, and like I don't like to shit on any cut or any variety or any strain. Like I love. I mean, cookies was so influential in my like. There was a period where I was just like obsessed with cookies. Like I'm sure some people were, and some people shit on it
I'm
like
I'm
it's
not
the
judging,
greatest.
there's good
Yeah.
cookies out there.
So I
Everything's
mean,
got a
like,
place. I'm just speaking from a standpoint of how much diversity we had back then, and now
mhm,
it feels like more people are just trying to get seeds out there by breeding the same families together
for
and,
sure.
make it a little bit different because you got sick of this, we'll bring some new genetics into it, and there's a new line.
We have a legal market here, and like if you look at the legal market trends, it's like it's. I mean, it's literally saturated with like the same looking, the same like effect creating types of varieties that like we would all consider hype modern day strains. But it's you know you just don't want to shit on anyone that's making that type of stuff. Like because what's happening is a lot of these Canadian places are buying clones now from American clone type places or places that were able to get like American hype genetics into the Canadian scene, and now they're like that's all you see here, or they're buying like they're spending a fortune on like really good breeders work from the states, but the work is all kind of pushing towards that direction of this like same saturated type of thing you're seeing where it's a lot of beautiful looking. It all looks the same, and we all know what I'm talking about, like the type of structure, the bud structure, the leaf structure, color. It all looks the same. It kind of smokes the same. It looks the same, smells the same. But I find it's got like we consume a lot of the market just to see like what's going on, and also we're able to see some of the clones that come through from the states that are more of these hype clones. Like we've kept some of them short term, some we just pass on, some friends get it. We smoke that. So we get to experience a lot of them. But I just like, it's not something I really want to consume very often. They're nice, but not something I want. And I agree. I just love the old school stuff that, has more
Has that
diversity.
longevity.
Yeah. Like that we're all wanting to go back to, or it's just continually recycles where I don't know if this will recycle. It just continues to like saturate.
Different
So it's hard to
flavors,
say.
less constant berry and constant this and constant that. I was talking to breeder Steve not too long ago. We did an episode with him, and he hit the nail on the head with me. He said, "I don't know about you, but I've grown tens and hundreds of thousands of plants."
He
And
has.
he said, "All of these 30 percenters plus,
Hmm.
that's when they're all starting to kinda taste the same." you're getting
Hmm.
really high amounts of like THC in there, and that's the
Yeah.
dominant that we're breeding towards, and a lot of them are getting that flavor.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah. I
your
mean,
thoughts on the modern market, and what do we have to do to save it? Do you think it's fine as it is, or do you think we could better it from bringing in some older genetics?
well, I think like our market here in Canada is a great example of what you saw in Colorado when Colorado went legal. Is we're having this inflated THC and like cannabinoid profiles by like labs, and so it's become this competition for customers by labs. So clients are trying to take on clients as much as they can or keep clients, and so everything here is inflated. So there's so many of us that don't even believe that there's really 30% that are kicking around, or like obviously as many that you see. I mean, you see COAs here that are just they're laughable, and then it's just like that's a start. So we have to get like good testing and accurate testing in, and then we can really get away from like really like numbers are so important. Don't ever get me wrong. Like I'm a data guy, I get it. Numbers are so important. We need them for a lot of reasons, but we really want to know about effect and how that correlates to the numbers. And so if we can get accurate numbers, then we can start doing that. We can see what people want to smoke and what is consumers like what motivates them to purchase stuff because that's really the end game for everybody
Like,
right now, right?
and
We
so yeah,
have this whole market guided toward 30 percenters. Everyone's trying to buy 30 percenters. And I find that I agree. If you get real testing down, like you'll see that cultivars that were testing at 20%, rarely breaking 20% 7 years ago, are now well over like 28% or 30%. So we get the accurate testing down. And I agree, we can bring in plants that are really 17% THC plants, but have really interesting cannabinoid profiles. And then that at least we can say, like, hey, you're enjoying a plant that's 17% or even 13%, but it's got this interesting cannabinoid profile, and that's why you're really enjoying it. And now the way our market works in Canada, buyers won't even look like you get people requesting on like the buyers side of it, and they're like, we're looking for this large amount from so and so or this sort of thing, but it has to be COA of 28% or above THC. And so you can't even enter stuff that's special into the market right now that is maybe 17%, like a true 17%, and that sort of thing right now. So that all has to kind of fall in line for us to really progress and do something like that is actually good for this kind of legalization thing that's going on for everybody. And so I would like to see, we're kind of seeing it because there's more requests. I'm seeing more requests for like a lot of the older stuff. And so like it's a lot of the people are kind of coming back, or they're realizing that there's a market of connoisseurs that they can't bring to the dispensaries right now, or they can't bring to their brands that want the experience of like, hey, if I'm gonna buy, like let's say San Fernando Valley OG Kush, like I want it to actually be the San Fernando Valley OG Kush, and I know that when I go buy it right now, it's gonna be some fucking who knows,
Something
right?
hyped
And
up
it's
that they added
yeah, and
resin to, yeah.
it's just so that sort of stuff. And so not only is like accurate lineage of like said cultivar going to be important, but also real testing. So like when those things kind of come in line, then we can really start entering interesting stuff that people will consume, because it won't be about 30% THC or 9% terpenes on a flower. You're like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like that barely exists, if not doesn't.
Oh,
So
done it a million
that
times,
for
dude.
sure. But I
You're
mean, we're
telling me
we're
a
seeing
third of
more.
this is resin.
Yeah, we're seeing more people requesting and wanting old stuff, which is promising. But again, it's as much as it's promising, those two things have to come into line for this to really be something that can happen. Because so far, still, it's like I want 30+%. You see 40% flower, which is like if you promote that, you should just be like silence. That's just ridiculous, ridiculous promotion. 40%.
This has been an amazing episode, Paul. I want to thank you again so much before your
Oh,
time.
thank you.
Before we get going here, though, I want to run through some of these questions from the Patreon members.
For sure.
Right. First up, we've got Dank Panda. He says, do you know the genetics behind the Lindsay OG?
No. Well, see, OGs are funny in Canada. What happens a lot in Canada is an OG will come from somewheres and it's just fucking renamed, right? So that's like what happened to Roji OG. There's a lot of OGs that like that's unfortunately what happens everywhere. But so like stuff like stuff like Lindsay OG comes from Lindsay, Ontario, Liberty Farms. So all credit has to go to Liberty Farms. You can check their name. You can just research, Google Liberty Farms Canada, and you'll see they're from Lindsay, Ontario. I better be fucking right with Ontario, or I'm dead. But I'm pretty sure it's on. I'll be dead. Sorry,
The
I'm pretty
worst
sure it's
Canadian
Ontario.
ever.
Oh, dead. But Liberty Farms, and they've entered competitions, they've won, but no one seems to really know the lineage of what Lindsay is. But she's really nice. She's really Kush dominant, so not truly heavily gassy, but really a beautiful, like earthy type OG Kush. So uh, special in her own right. Still keep her to this day. One of the few that still have her because she had a really high peak of interest and then just fucking died off with the like cookie cake gelato craze I hit here. Like she's extinct, but like I still keep her. I literally have her in my flower room right now that's just seeded up with some blueberry pollen. So
Oh
blueberry
yeah.
OG,
Hell yeah. Your own
Canadian version,
rendition
eh?
of Blueberry. That's awesome. Big Bad John wants to know, what male selection do you have that holds pollen the longest?
All I keep right now, I used to have a decent extensive library of regular males. Now I only keep two males. And I keep one male is my favorite. It's my Pine Tar Kush male that comes from Tom Hill Hayes. And that line was found through IC Mag auction through Verdant Green, did preservation work on some Tom Hill Hayes, Tom Hill Pine Tar Kush. And so these were F3s and they were like super rare at the time. And so that's the only male. I keep that regular male and I keep a really awesome, I have a really special Magnum Opus male from Aficionado that I really enjoy and like working with. And those are the only two males I have now that are regulars. And, but I mean, like, my goal, I went through this period where you do reading and research, and it's like you can't keep males that drop pollen and veg. You just can't do it. They're shitty. They're going to produce herms. They're garbage. Get rid of them. Don't keep them, man. They're a nuisance to keep, but I've like over time realized that they don't all produce shitty like offspring, and some of them that like do drop pollen sometimes drop pollen for just reasons that maybe aren't going to play out in future lines or future work that are negative. So you just really can't tell if it's bad or not until you really see it in numbers and in offspring and in combinations, but in decent numbers. So that's really my advice on that. Like, don't be scared to keep them. They're a pain to keep, but I have some males that just, no matter what you do in the past, like the Pine Tar Kush male, no matter what you do with that dude, he can like sit and veg. He never drops pollen. But I find over the years of working with lots and lots and lots of blueberry males, for instance, like years of seeing blueberry males and holding on to them and like kind of keeping them for a while. Dennis the Menace was kind of unique in the way that he would hold on to his pollen, but even at times of like certain stress from either drought or needing some more space in his root zone, he would eventually throw some pollen. And so those males, like I said, I have kept around, and I do have some males that hold pollen, like the Pine Tar Kush male. That guy holds pollen forever. But I said at the end of the day, don't worry if some drop pollen and veg, keep them or work with them, but just make sure you know what they do, or at best to your ability know what they do. I had lots of
Absolutely.
males back in the day, regular males, like lots. It was a nuisance too to keep lots of those guys. They're just real estate. That's why,
And
like,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, just that's why feminized breeding now. It's just like it's not lazy, but it's just so nice to do now. So nice to do.
I've never done any of it. I'm kind of scared too, honestly.
It's fun, man. It's
But if
fun.
I do, I will hit you up for some advice. I
Oh,
just
for
thought it
sure,
was
dude.
hilarious that we had a follow-up Patreon question here from Crawdaddy that says, "When's Blueberry OG gonna be ready?"
Oh, dude. I've done lots of regular lines of the blueberry OG, like lots, because like I said, those like two of my favorite things to do. Those profiles, I love blueberry, and I love like that's the only real sweet plant I love is blueberry. But yeah, we've done lots of regular lines of blueberry OG, so lots of like the Dennis the Menace, pollinating Lindsay OG and Roji OG, so Canadian blueberry OG lines, and then some of the more American ones as well. We did, but this time around we're doing some Winnie the Blue, so we're doing some like fem pollen onto some of these OGs. So yeah, man, they'll be ready probably in. I mean, as soon as you know, for testing at least, probably like 2 3 months. So definitely hit it up, man. Love just handing out testers. So whether you grow them or not, I don't give a shit either because we'll test them anyway ourselves.
Got a couple more questions before we get going. We're gonna give away a couple packs of Old Timer 1 haze, which is the old school fucking UK
Yeah.
haze with the Winnie the Blue. and ATF, the Alaskan Thunderfuck with the Topanga Canyon OGs. Those are going to go out to 2 members. We've got a pack going out to our free members. This is a fat pack too. You loaded these with seeds, man. This
Always
is
do, man. I'm too lazy to count.
Breeder Steve's Sweet Skunk crossed with Dennis the Menace, the old DJ Blueberry from '05.
They're fun,
So
man. They're a fun line. Those ones.
So
It's
if
like
you're a new member in here, I want you to pick a number between 1 and 10. Whoever is closest will get the pack. Got 1 minute on that, guys. Throw a number out there. Dank Panda wants to know, have you done any work with the UBC chemo?
no, but like obviously we were just having a conversation about the other day. Me and a friend of mine. And like that, if I can get my hands on a couple of the older, like I'm pretty happy with the library. I don't take much in anymore because I'm content. But that is one that I would always have an open door for. But it's hard to find. Every time I come across it, I've had it in clone, like I've had it sent in cuttings numerous times, and one time rooted, no, 2 times rooted. But every time I get it, it's so fucking like it's so diseased and like so filthy with pests and problems that I just changed my mind about it. And I've progressed over the years where like out of necessity of just preserving things, I take things in that are in the fucking worst shape and require sometimes a year and a half to just like kind of get to a state where they get reintroduced into the actual like bedroom. But yeah, every time I've ever had my luck of getting it, it's been such a potential issue that I was like, fuck it, it's not worth it. I'll find it again, and it just never comes back in a state I want to take it in at. I would take it in now, but it just hasn't come across my way in the years. Special plant though, for sure.
Do you know, are you very familiar with Ramo at all?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like everyone knows Remo. He's a sweetheart, one of the
I call
best
him Ramo.
ambassadors to the cannabis planting community. He's a really, really special human being. Yeah, I know of him. I've talked to him a few times, and he probably knows maybe of my brand, but I definitely know him, and like I've spoken to him before. Yes, and he sponsored some of my events, which was nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
He was the last one that I had heard from that really, really seemed to love that UBC chemo, and I
yeah,
haven't heard about it really since that. That's
yeah.
cool that
It's
you have some experience with it and you back it up with that.
yeah, it's definitely it's held in BC and in play like it's there, it's held, but like it's held very tightly, and it is on the it's like some of those plants that like if it wasn't for a couple people holding it, it definitely would be extinct because people have moved on, unfortunately. But it's truly a special medicinal plant, truly. And if you're able to get your hands on it and you're lucky to consume it, that's really awesome.
I wanna know where grapefruit ranks on your top strains.
Really special too. Like
Yeah.
another one, but like I, I've had it at times, but don't have it now. Last time I was trying to get it into the library was man maybe like 4 years ago, and that was through another really good collective here in Canada that are a really well known group of guys. But if for some reason it just didn't work out, and I know a couple of people that hold it. And like I said, it's just one of those plants. Like I have a Federation, a really old Federation Mikado cut that's essentially grapefruit, because it's essentially like a Breeder Steve line of grapefruit, essentially. And so it's really nice, and that does the grapefruit job for me. And I've had it tested. I know what it tests at. I've worked with it, and I really like it. And that's a special cut to me. That's similar enough to not have to go chase down the grapefruit cut. The
So you're
SP.
talking about the sweet pink grapefruit.
Yeah, yeah,
Have
yeah.
you ever had any other styles of grapefruit?
Well, just like I said, the Mikado. Like the Mikado
Mikado?
is a special. So Federation Jason, who is Next Generation Seeds now, he was Federation Seeds before partner, and they had a line that was essentially the sweet pink was used in that line, and a lot of the offspring that pumped out were very grapefruit dominant. And so we have a really old school, like Federation was a staple in Canada, and like from the old Emery magazines, like just a
Oh,
really
yeah.
wicked breeding crew, right? And Jason's a sweet, like Jason's amazing with Next Gen, and yeah, he had the cutting and used the cutting, and in that subsequent line, really awesome grapefruit phenos kicked out, and we have this amazing cut that was hunted by a really awesome guy out of the Yukon, and he's one of those guys we were able to return this cut to. It's his favorite cut, but it's a great kind of really dominant grapefruit cut.
That's awesome. So I asked about that because I had a friend that did a collab with another breeder. One used the sweet pink, one used another line of grapefruit that they had to kinda bring diversity back to the line, instead of bringing it was very, very heavy on the sweet pink at the time.
Right.
And I grew out some of the progeny from that, and the sweet pink is fucking amazing. I remember growing that back in the greenhouse days. It threw down pounds. You didn't really have to do too much of it except for, like, feed it heavy. You
Nice.
didn't really have to do
That's about
much to
right.
it. It kinda grew itself, really. It was
Yeah.
beautiful, you know? And everybody knows the sweet pink taste.
Yeah.
But we had one that was, oh god, it was a bitch of a plant. It was a bitch of a plant. It had, like, 2-inch internodes on it, and it would just throw off really, really small, hard budlets around it. Everything about it looked like the grapefruit, except if you stretched out those internodes.
Right.
And something about that one, I got rid of it the first time that I found it. Thank God I went back. But I lost the first time because I just said, "This is a straggly plant. Nobody wants to grow this," you know? And
Right.
I did the grower thing and afterwards found out that it was amazing and
Right.
regretted every second of it, but it was exactly like the sweet pink, but it had a bit more sour taste to it. Have you ever come across anything like that?
Like I always say, like a lot of people toss runts, and I always find that like the runty plants sometimes are the ones that you want to put some focus onto. And so I have found in my days, like a lot of times you run something that is either like runty or a little bit finicky in round one, keep your eye on it because sometimes, make sure you get a clone of that one for sure. Specifically, like sometimes you're so busy with the cloning process and keeping things for subsequent next round and keepers that you're like, it's the fucking runt. I won't worry too much about it if it lives or dies. But don't, man. Make sure that runt is cloned and make sure that runt will survive because sometimes those runts are special. And so yeah, I've experienced times where runts really really shine, and you're like, thank God I got a clone of it. But grapefruit, like I said, only thing I really, really enjoy grapefruit wise in my garden because it's sweet and I like sweet, but not a big fan of it, is Federation's Mikado cut that I have. And it's only because of nostalgia. I love Federation. It's like one of my favorite. Like when I think of seeds, I think of Federation seeds, like Canadian, you know, Emery magazine, just running home to look at the seed catalog and then putting the order in. And they were reasonably priced, and everything that they put out in the day, like Jason's, if you want really good seeds, Jason from Next Generation, you can find him. He's a really, really, really special Canadian breeder. He puts out a lot of stuff, but yeah, that stuff is really, really special.
If somebody wanted to put an order of seeds in with you, how would they find you?
You just really like I said, like I do so much. I have so much other stuff going on that I don't can't be bothered with websites and stuff. And I had a couple distributors and stuff, but the best place to really catch me is like just literally on like Instagram. And like I know it's so stupid, but it's really the
No,
best place to catch me. And
that's where we
unfortunately,
did for a long time.
yeah, unfortunately, like you have to be there's one fake account, so just like you have to make sure you check their page and my page who you're talking to because my page has got lots of cannabis pictures on it and theirs is very much not. So, and then just make sure you know who you're talking to. I can confirm it just by talking to you. You'll see that it's me. If you check me out here, you'll know the certain way I talk. It's a little bit much sometimes, but that's how I am. And
No, I
you'll get a
love it,
vibe.
dude.
You'll get a vibe that it's me. So like definitely, and like I will confirm, double confirm with you in a way that you'll know it's me. So just do that. But I'm unfortunately, I'm sorry. That's the way to get a hold of me. You have to do that way. Maybe one day I'll get a website on, but for now, and I'll look after you. So if you go through the work to find me, I will look after you. Don't worry. I promise.
This has been probably one of my favorite podcasts in a while, man. I gotta say thank you so much for taking your time to donate these seeds
Honest.
to us. Before we get going, everybody that is a crew member that's in membership that stuck around to the very end here, I want you guys to pick a number between 4 and 20. We're gonna give away 2 packs here, the Alaskan Thunderfuck, the Topanga Canyon Cross, and the Old Timer One Haze with the Winnie the Blue. I wanna know about your Old Timer One Haze. That's the cut.
I'm happy you asked because this goes back to a really special guy that I also have in my world. His name's I'll just won't shout him out full, but his James T. Really solid guy. I was lucky enough to have some old seeds, Old Timer One Haze, and I was going to do a run, and he was like, "Hey, dude, let's make it a run." I think I had 12 or 10, and he was like, he ended up giving me like 30 So I ran a hunt of 40 old timer one haze in my situation, and I have some experience running with some of the sativas, so it's not the end of the world. But ran a large pheno hunt, narrowed down to three. We had some lab tests on three. Ended up doing. Funny enough, I never based on THC, but there was such a large hunt and so much work involved that I had these three phenos. I went with the highest THC plant out of that old timer one haze, and I think it hit just around 13%, just a little bit below 13%, so 12 something. So I took that one. It had beautiful structure too. It was one of the best ones out of the whole room. It was more suitable for the indoor kind of space that I grow in, not like where they should be growing under full sun. But that is a pheno that came out of that large hunt. So that goes to James T. Took that female, and then we reversed Winnie the Blue, and so you get this really beautiful line of like really extreme expression. So Winnie's a real true 7 to 8 week flowering. She can go 9 weeks, but she can be pulled 7.5, 8 weeks. So you have this really extreme line to hunt through where you get this really beautiful haze expressions, which are quite beautiful with a lot of the shorter flowering Winnie the Blue traits. So you get a lot of that kind of like blueberry haze. So it's a really fun line to hunt through. And yes, it's for sure legitimate old timer one haze. So
Let's say flowering time. How much did it bring it down?
well, these hazes went deep. Like we were up to in indoor that hunt went deep, and then we did another run for seeds. Like we did our first run for just our hunt, made our selections that we narrowed down to three, or we narrowed down to six, but we ended up keeping three for future runs and for future work. But yeah, those went. I think the longest went just short of like 19 weeks, 18 weeks. Like some of these like true like wild haze plants. They were so unruly and big. And that was with like all the training that I've been able to acquire from people over the years on how to do it right indoor, and doing no justice because we all know this should be grown outdoors in full sun and done well. But this is the best I can do. And so, yeah, they went up really high flowering time. Winnie's a shorter flowering time. So you'll get things that are around, most will be in that like 13, 14 week, because Winnie will really shorten flower time in her outcrossing, really will take over flower time. And then you'll get some outliers, obviously, that are going to be shorter, but most of the outliers will be higher flowering times that will maybe go above that timeline, but most will be in that range.
That's not too uncontrollable. Do you have any tips for people that wanna grow these hazes indoor, how to best control them?
For sure. And these are all, like I said, just things that have been passed on to me. This is nothing I can take credit for, but for sure, lots of shout outs to Rev, Charles, Reefer Man, teaching all this sort of knowledge, passing it on for free. But yeah, man, my trick is, first and foremost, we always have to agree that they should always be done properly in full sun and like outdoor proper sun. So this is just, you're doing the best you can with your environment. And so these really unruly hazes, or some of the African varieties that go 22, 21 weeks, that is just Thai varieties that are just mind-blowingly long flowering. First thing you want to do is you want to deal with your lighting. So you want to make sure that you're going into a lighting kind of environment that is going to be shorter than your 12 and 12. So sometimes you want to start at maybe, you want to do 13 on, 11 off for like a period of time, and then slowly reduce as we get closer to ripeness into flower time to ensure you get some sort of ripeness. So you don't continually get revegging.
Reducing down to what?
I mean, you can go as low as 10 on, like 10 on. Yeah. And that will help prevent this massive like 12 and 12, you're just going to get flowering to a point, and then it's just going to
Try to
reveg,
keep
reveg,
going.
reveg. So it's a real like bummer, right? If you're making seeds, it's not the end of the world, but it's still not ideal. And so that's one thing you want to do before you even start. Then you want to realize, you want to look at what these things are going to flower for. If it's some of those varieties that are going 20 weeks, be prepared, dude. Like you're going to take like 6 months out of your life for these plants. And so plan that too. So make sure that this is what we do too. So get them started in seeds, get them transplanted up, as you normally would, and then start getting your topping so you can get some clones off of them. But because they're such long flowering plants, you can kind of cheat. And this is what I like doing. So just get them going, get them in a good pot, upsize, upsize, upsize till they're a foot tall, no more than a foot tall, even 10 inches tall. And then just fucking put them in your flower room and start flowering at that stage. And because they flower so long, they don't really trip, and you don't really see flowering traits until like sometimes 10 weeks, 11, 12, 13 weeks, right? So you're just getting these plants that continually are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So you can theoretically save time and planning and just take all your clones off your mothers and do all your your like labeling and all that for your future keepers and what you're going to keep in round two. So that's a trick to do that, and that way you can kind of maintain and hack them down a little bit. But it's a process. So flip them really early, change the light cycle, get them in really good pots so that they don't really need a lot of attention. Like Rev said it best, sativas are the wolves of the cannabis world. They don't really need a lot of human intervention. Hybrids and indicas are dogs. They kind of need us. And so, the sativa, when we grow it, I put it in really big pots and I let them kind of just do their thing there. And because they're flowering for so long, lots of basement layering of amendments and then top dressing throughout the whole program. But really, that's all they're going to require, right? Because they're going to go so deep. And that, to me, with those methods, keeps them short, keeps them manageable. You can still clone them and save yourself some time in planning. And it's just with the lighting schedule, they finish indoors. And so it's not something that most people can't do, but it will take some experience of doing that. And then some training, basic training. That's what I do. And that helps a lot.
I love that answer, and I learned a couple things right there that I think I might incorporate with some of the tie runs too. That was very good advice. Thank you so much for that, Paul. And
For sure.
thank you again for taking time out of your day. This has been an amazing episode. I vibe with you. I dig where your heart's at. You've got passion for the plant, and that's very evident. And you take very well care of yourself and this
For
huge
sure.
library that you have. Like,
For
you
sure.
seem like a very amazing person. I'm glad that we crossed paths, and I look forward to hopefully doing
For sure.
another one with you in the future.
Anytime, man. And I'd just like to thank everybody who like takes time out of their day to like message me, contact me, support me. And a huge shout out to my family, my wife, my daughter. My family is the only reason why I'm here. So love you guys.
I hope you all had an amazing night. We've got two winners. The Alaskan Thunderfuck Topanga Canyon is going away first to Big Bad John. The number was 4. He got closest with 5. Congratulations, Big Bad John. And the Old Timer Haze with the Winnie the Blue. The number was 19. And the closest member was Crawdaddy with 17. Congratulations, Crawdaddy. You got yourself some Beyond Christmas haze. No, it
Yeah.
should be about Christmas right now,
Yeah. They'll,
if you
they'll be
pop them
done. Yeah.
today.
Get them started. Get them started, brother.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. Until next time, I hope you all had a great night. This has been Doc Calyx with the Calyx Crew Podcast saying, grow smarter, not harder.
Wow! Come on, can you groove along? I said, baby, I know you're on a roll. Sweet honey, let's take it real.